Sweat trickled down my back in slow, humiliating streams, sticking my shirt to my body beneath the garish lights. I stared into the darkness past the footlights, rows of business leaders and curious onlookers at the Kenya Agribusiness Innovation Center. Next to the red digital clock counting my fateful 5 minutes, my slides flicked and my voice trembled around my tongue. My name is Zawadi Njoroge. My business Enchai Flavors will. The way a few people tittered at the name wasn't lost on me. We are going to bring Kenyan street food to dignified Nairobi dining. My words were tinny, rehearsed, dying. The judges, pressed upright in their crisp suits, blinked stonily at me. The man in the middle drummed his fingers. I saw my uncle, Mzee Joseph, hunched in the crowd, shaking his head as if I were embarrassing not just myself, but every family member from Ruiru to Mombasa. I made it to slide 4, the mock-up of the inspired Githeri tartar and Sukuma fusion tacos. I watched agonizingly aware as judges scrolled their phones. The woman on the left, eyes sharp as a paring knife, cut me short. Do you really think high-class Nairobi wants Githeri on a white plate? Laughter. Have you given up on a real career, Emrimbo, or is this your mother's doing? I stammered, tried to shore up my dignity, but every word that left my mouth was a limp defense. My rehearsed ending meant to soar fluttered down in a whimper. My time was up and no one clapped. I felt like a child who'd peed herself in public. Stepping off stage, the world flared, heat, shame, and a deep ache pulling behind my eyes. Later, outside in the raw Nairobi air, my little brother Sifa sidled up, wearing his school uniform and a pitying smile. Aki, Zawadi, why do you do this to yourself? You know Dad will say. He stopped, but it was too late. He'd be right, of course. My father, once a nurse and now a church elder, had spent months telling anyone who'd listen, our Zawadi wants to make a clown of herself, calling herself a chef like these Mzungu TV people. Unga too, but dreams too big to swallow. He wanted a teacher in the family, or at worst, a bank worker, something he could understand. Later, I stood by myself at the matatu stop as sweat dried stickily against my shirt. The city pressed in, buses exhaling black diesel, the hawkers barking, the sharp tang of grilled maize mixed with car exhaust. I let my phone buzz in my pocket, Mamek Sifa, then my cousin Mumbai, then Dad. I couldn't face their strained cheer or clear disappointment, couldn't face their questions, so any investors, when will you get serious? Kai, even Githeri. I rode home in silence, my palms damp and my body humming with humiliation. I didn't cry, my tears crouched behind my eyelids, thick and hot, waiting, determined not to tumble in front of strangers. I stared out the window as downtown faded to corrugated roofs and battered storefronts. Kids in torn shorts tussled in the dust, mothers shouted, goats weaved around boda-bodas. A group of women haggled at a roadside stand, the smell of boiled maize rising. My city, my home, always moving, never pausing for one bruised dreamer. That was the moment, I think, when I realized something ferocious had rooted itself inside me, a stubborn, coiled rage resistant to their doubt. I would not give them the satisfaction, I would not let my shame turn to surrender, but the days that followed bruised me in new, quieter ways. Word spread through our extended family WhatsApp group. My Kikuyu MasterChef flop was now the week's dinner table humor. My Aunt Wanjiru sent a gif of Gordon Ramsay spitting out food. A cousin from Karen posted, street food na Yasoko, not the Hilton, cousin. My mother, sweet and pragmatic, brought me a second helping of Sukuma wiki and avoided my eyes. My only refuge was our tiny kitchen, tiles scrubbed bald by decades of soap and effort. At night, when the house grew still, I kneaded dough by hand and let flour powder my arms, calming myself in the silence. I pounded mixed mboga for samosas and picked out every pebble from my beans. I cooked as if it were my prayer, every whisk, every slow caramelizing onion, a small act of rebellion, a promise whispered to the walls. I am more than their laughter. The following year I took occasional jobs, prepping in backstreet restaurants, making ugali till my wrists hurt, hustling Sunday chapo orders for neighbors. Some days I felt like a shadow. 25, degree in nutrition, making 10 bob a chapati and still a joke at family gatherings. My parents spoke of me with a tolerance fit for a stubborn invalid. Church ladies offered to pray the confusion away. But one Monday in June, after an exhausting shift at a noisy Westlands food stall, something changed. A white couple, backpackers, asked about my spicy cassava rolls, my own invention. They took my number. That week they tagged me in an Instagram post, hidden Nairobi gems, thank you Zawadi. The image, my hands, flour and all, cradling their meal. Doubtful, I watched as my following inched up. An Australian foodie wrote, "Ever do private catering?" I said yes, with no idea how I'd do it. I borrowed serving platters. I scrounged for cash, swept up my mother's living room, threw on an apron, and cooked until my legs turned spongy and my voice rasped out. The event was hardly glamorous. 8 loud Australians, 5 mismatched chairs, my father's old gospel cassettes fighting the sound of traffic outside. Yet when they polished off my cardamom mandazi and thought-provoking cassava fries, they clapped as if I had given them gold. "You should open a real restaurant," they cried. I started to believe I could. The momentum built. A blogger came then too. My food crept into Nairobi expat circles, then into offices, then to the street fair where embassy workers tried my ugali fries and grinned. Orders grew, not booming but steady, the slow, patient build of someone with nothing left to lose. With every meal I felt a piece of my old humiliation batter and fall away, but at home their respect lagged behind. At the annual family gathering in Ruru, Jid, my overstuffed cousin, cornered me as I served sweet potato bites on paper plates. "At least you can cook at your wedding, Zawadi." "Save bride price." Laughter bubbled around me as they loaded their plates, their eyes sliding over me like I wasn't really there. Weeks later, hope, a fragile, unexpected kind, arrived in my inbox. "We are pleased to invite Enchai Flavors to cater the Kenya Food Future Expo at the Sarit Center, platform for Kenya's new culinary stars." It was the kind of spotlight that drew headlines, real journalists, investors, even celebrities. I stared dumbfounded at the official email on my cracked Samsung. I copied the logo, put it in the family group. At first, silence, then my Uncle Mzee Joseph replied, a simple thumbs up, my palms pricked with nerves. I texted Sifa, who replied, "Show them Zawadi, forward ever." My preparation was fevered, determined. Mama fretted, wanting to help but worried about wasting food. I ignored her and rented cooking burners, borrowed platters, and woke 2 hours before dawn on the day itself. I chopped kachumbari until my eyes strung, marinated 10 kilos of goat. Morning brought a city wrapped in clouds. I clanged pans over sputtering flames on the side of the expo hall, watching other confident chefs, most male, strutting in tailored whites, eyes on the prize. My stall was simple: blue kitenge tablecloth, a chalkboard reading Enchai Flavors Urban Kenyan Soul. A few women from my estate came to buy 5 samosas each, wishing me luck. At 10 o'clock sharp, the air filled with the sound of hissing oil, warm bread, grilled spices. I cooked with a kind of fury, each dish an answer to every joke they'd made about me. Curious onlookers streamed by, drawn by the sizzle and the unfamiliar names. I served ugali croquettes and carrot spikachi burgers, my hands moving in sure, measured rhythm. I inhaled the greasy sweet smell and let it anchor me. By noon, a food critic from the nation stood at my stall scribbling notes. Then, a flock of women with ministerial ids tasted my tilapia sambal and asked for business cards. "Who taught you this?" a TV reporter asked, camera whirring. "No one," I answered, voice steady. "These are our foods, I just respect them." Yet the moment of victory, when it happened, took me by surprise. It wasn't the crowd around my stall or the feature on today's Kula Kenya radio. It came when my Uncle Joseph, 3 hours late and sheepish, walked into the expo, trailing my mother and 2 aunts. They stopped, uncertain at my stand. I froze. Sunlight streamed in from the expo windows, catching the gold in my mother's hair. I watched as Uncle Joseph's eyes swept the chalkboard, then the crowd buying my food, lining up, laughing, begging for seconds. Zawadi, you move big now, eh?" he said, half mocking, half awkward. He stood back as my mother stepped forward, arms folded, looking not angry, not proud, just uncertain. A writer from Capital FM appeared with a camera. "Miss Njoroge, can we have a word about your business?" I nodded. The crowd around my stall swelled, jostling for a view. Reporters pointed out my long queue, the way even city professionals were licking their plates. Each order sold out in minutes. Someone started shouting, "Where's Zawadi?" while I wiped my hands, the scent of cumin and coriander clinging to me. "Owner, see, I told you," one of the matronly aunts crowed. "Our Zawadi serves Wazungu and government even." Her tone was a weapon, but her eyes were wide with a stunned kind of awe. Then, without planning, the proof unfolded itself. The food critic returned, business card between his fingers, announcing to everyone within 20 feet, "Congratulations, Enchai Flavors wins Rising Street Chef of the Year." He handed me a check for 100,000 shillings and a small acrylic plaque engraved with my name. The crowd erupted. I froze, plaque heavy in my hand, blinking at the surge of shouting and applause. My mother, never one for drama, started crying quietly. My uncle clapped, awkward at first, then louder. The family stood stunned as people swerved in for selfies, calling me Chef Zawadi. That's our family's Zawadi, I heard someone gasp behind me, the words sharp with disbelief. I stood there flour-dusted, sweat-stained, and utterly recognized. For the first time I tasted not just vindication but the rich flavor of acceptance. My body, long clenched and wary, finally eased into the day. My hands shook as I set down the plaque and met my family's gaze, no longer pleading but steady, proud. When my shift was done, I packed up my platters, the tablecloth sticky with sauce. My mother still hovered, wiping her eyes, murmuring, "Sawadi Mami, I was wrong, I didn't know." I squeezed her hand. "It's okay, Mama, you didn't have to know, I knew." The next week my family hosted a dinner, this time not hidden or reluctant, but a real sprawling affair. White tents knotted the backyard, fairy lights strung above, the air fragrant with roasting meat. My father, still uncertain, tried setting up the sound system, not too loud for the neighbors. Cousins brought plastic chairs and squeezed together, bustling with gossip. But this time there was no ridicule, no smirking as I cooked. All afternoon, Uncle Joseph asked, "What is this, marinated goat again?" "Teach me," my brother Sifa snapped photos for Insta, while Aunt Wanderu hovered suspiciously close to my choma station, whispering, "So, how do you really make samosas that crispy, eh?" As dusk fell, I carried out trays lined with glistening mandazi, baskets of ugali croquettes, and a steaming pot of mbuzi biryani. The clamor as I set them down washed over me, a deep tide of hunger, laughter, and pride. My father came to my side, hands trembling, searching my face. For once, he didn't seem to have a joke or a warning. "Zawadi," he said softly, "you have made us all proud. You showed us what can come from believing, even when we did not." I smiled, the burns on my hands aching, the scars inside eased. "Dad, this is just the beginning." He nodded, pulling me apron and all into a brief, suffocating hug. For a few moments the noise faded, leaving only the sense of garlic cardamom curry. The air was heavy with dusk and the memory of dreams no longer dennied. The crowd pressed plates into my hands, urging me to eat with them. For the first time I did. I sat beneath the warm Nairobi sky, tasted my own food amid the family who had doubted, the city that had once jeered, and let myself believe, finally, fully, that every flavor of struggle had at last become home. And as laughter mingled with the scent of spice, I saw my aunt carry a plate to an elderly neighbor, beaming, "Have you met Zawadi, our chef? Hours from here." Her voice, proud, made my heart burn. The city around us did not pause or slow for my small triumph, it hardly ever does. But in that glowing garden filled with taste and talk, I understood that my return was not a surrender, not a retreat, but a reclamation. I had brought back something only I could offer. They saw it now, and so did I. Every bite we shared was proof, every mouthful a quiet forgiveness, for them and for myself.